Hello or hello again, and welcome to the Craft Habit Beginner Embroidery Stitches tutorial video series. I'm going to show you split stitch and stem stitch now. These two are fun. We're going to start with split stitch. If you watch the first set of videos, you've learned backstitch. Split stitch is a lot like backstitch. So we're going to start as usual with our needle threaded, short tail on one side, long tail on the other. I like to have a knot. It is up to you whether or not you have one. If you don't have a knot on your thread, you have to remember not to pull it all the way through. So I like to start with a knot because then I don't, one less thing to remember. So I'm going to start on my line, come up, and I'm going to start with a single running stitch. So one stitch here. I'm going to make my stitch length, I don't know, about 1/3 of an inch or so. And then for split stitch, your next stitch starts in the middle of your previous one. So from behind you're going to come up and you want to hit the center point of this stitch, and you're also coming up wiggling your needle between the strands of floss. So when you come up, your thread is coming up right in the center point of that stitch, and it's also splitting the strands of floss like so. And then you're going to come forward about a stitch length and down. So the next stitch again comes up in the midpoint and in between the strands of floss, and pull, and then down. With this stitch, the texture of it will change depending on how long your stitch length is. And that's just something to play with. I think it looks more feathery when it's a shorter stitch length. When it's longer, I think it looks more braided. But that is something that you will kind of see for yourself as you experiment with split stitch. So again, each stitch is coming sort of backwards on the back side of the fabric, so it's coming back up in the midpoint of the previous stitch. And then when you move forward, you're moving this far and then this far again. So you've got room to come up right there and split those strands of floss. So this is split stitch. I'm going to go ahead and just leave my needle in the back here. And I'm going to show you stem stitch down here. The stem stitch is very similar, only instead of splitting it, we're going to come up alongside. So I'll show you that. So stem stitch, we're going to start on the line, come up, make a stitch here. So when you come up from the back for your next stitch, you're going to come up at the midpoint, but instead of splitting those strands, you're going to come up right alongside them like that. And when you come forward, you want to come back to hit the line. So whether it's a straight line or a curved line, whatever you're working on, you want to come back to hit the line. So what's happened is you have a very ever so slightly diagonal line because your stitch started a little bit below the line down here, just below your previous stitch, and it's coming forward. So next stitch is going to come back here and start at the midpoint but just below this one, and it's going to end back on the line moving forward. So with stem stitch, I usually stay consistent as to which side I'm going on. But you can switch it back and forth, you can do variations, you can also always run it off the top instead. I think I just started this one on the bottom and that's what I'm going to keep doing. I do like to keep a really consistent stitch length on this one. I think you can see the texture best when your stitches are fairly consistent. But once you've got a few stitches down, you can start to see the texture. It's really pretty. Somehow it looks kind of braided. This one works really nice on borders and curves. If you've got something that's got a pretty sharp curve, you're going to want to start with a short stitch length because you'll need shorter stitches to get around a sharp curve. Let's do the last one there. So that is what stem stitch looks like up close. And here I'll get you a close-up of split stitch as well. See if that's going to focus. There we go. That's better. So those are split stitch and stem stitch. In my next video, we're going to tackle some other fun stuff. Hope to see you there.